We all have things that make us feel nervous or anxious, and the same goes for our children, of course. Sometimes it just feels that our kids may be getting stuck on some of these worries or things that they feel scared of, and we need to help them how to deal with this appropriately. Now, if you have a child who tends to feel anxious, nervous, or scared quite easily, I do understand that it's more difficult to help them to manage that. Sometimes it's even almost as if our kids feel that they need to feel that way, need to feel anxious or worried about something, even if they are aware that they cannot control it or they don't have control over everything. And even that can be a cause of anxiety sometimes. Let's look at some strategies that are going to help our children and ourselves manage these different stresses. The first thing that we need to do, and this can be for yourself or you can do this with your child as well. It works just as well for children and for adults. But the first thing you're going to do is you're going to try and figure out what it is that increases the anxiety. Think about it for a moment, discuss it with your child, always involve your child wherever and whenever you can. And then make sure it's in a relaxed setting and write down what these stresses are. What are the triggers that cause these feelings of anxiety, the things that cause our kids to feel nervous or anxious? Write it down and make sure that you're involving them and encouraging them to think about it too. Then you're going to add a section on your piece of paper where you're writing down, where you challenge the anxiety. And this means you're going to ask yourself, is it rational or irrational? Discuss this with your child as well. Let them know what this means. What does it mean if something is rational or irrational? If it's irrational, we need to think of a way to manage the anxiety. This can be something like doing slow, deep breathing, counting to 10, perhaps counting to 10 in a different language is something that really takes their focus away from the anxiety for a moment. It helps them to focus on something different. That works really well for some of our children. Or you can do something like a 5 senses exercise, tuning into different senses and helping with managing the anxiety and those feelings bubbled up inside of them to just ease them and help them feel calmer in themselves too. Now, when you've done that coping strategy or the exercise, you're going to tear out that piece of paper where you wrote these things down and throw it away. Throw it in the rubbish bin. We've dealt with it. It's over and done with. This is something that you can do over and over again with your child when they are in those situations, even reminding them of, is it rational or irrational? I'm worried about something that I have no control over. I can't do anything about it. It's irrational. And therefore, I'm going to write it down, deal with it, implement my coping strategy, and chuck it in the bin. So if it's a rational fear or anxiety, that's a little bit different. So we need to treat it differently. Let's say, for example, it's an event that our child is feeling really anxious about. Now we're going to involve our child again, do some research about this event. Is it a place that they're going to go? Is it an activity that they perhaps need to attend or take part in? Find out what to expect. Help our children to know what to expect. And perhaps through that, we can start working on coping strategies to also prove to them, where is it a rational anxiety or a fear, something to be nervous about, and then we are going to deal with that. And when is it not necessary to be worried? And if we still feel worried, what can we do about that? This is just a simple activity, of course, but it really helps us and our children to move through the different thought processes. That's the big thing of dealing with things that cause our kids to feel anxious. Some children may need to go through this activity or these activities more often than others, but we would recommend doing it together at least a few times per week so that they can get into the habit, into the rhythm of doing these activities, eventually doing it themselves and independently. Let us know how you go.